Throughout human history, rulers have gone to incredible lengths to make sure they're remembered. They've built towering monuments, redrawn maps through war, and held power over millions. But their time on Earth was always limited. To get around this, many believed that death wasn't an end, but just a move to a new place. And for that journey, they'd need their staff servants, guards, and concubines to come along. For centuries, this meant a gruesome tradition of human sacrifice, where living people were killed to serve a dead master. But what if a ruler thought that was thinking too small? What if, instead of a few dozen people, they decided to be buried with an entire army, thousands strong, to continue their reign for all time? You may have heard a story about a powerful Chinese empress who was buried with 1,000 terracotta servants. It's a compelling image, but the truth is even more incredible. The most famous, most breathtaking example of this wasn't for an empress at all. It was for an emperor of China's first emperor. And he didn't order just 1,000 servants. He commanded an army of an estimated 8,000 unique, life-sized soldiers, an eternal legion ready for battle in the afterlife. Why did he need such a massive, silent army? The answer tells us a story not just about fearing death, but about the incredible ambition to conquer it. The world before clay armies, a grisly tradition. To really grasp why an army of clay is such a big deal, we have to go back to a much darker time and understand what the ancient Chinese believed about the afterlife. For many early civilizations, the next world was a physical place, a direct continuation of life on Earth. You'd need your money, your status, and most importantly, your people. This led to a grim conclusion for the powerful. If you needed servants in the afterlife, you had to take them with you. This practice, known as retainer sacrifice, was a brutal reality for centuries. Archaeological digs across China have turned up chilling proof. In tombs from the Shang and Zhou dynasties, hundreds of years before the first emperor, the remains of kings have been found buried alongside their staff. These weren't just objects. They were people. Servants, guards, officials, and entertainers were killed and buried with their masters. The ancient text, Mozi, describes the horrifying scale of it, stating that for emperors and nobles, the number of human sacrifices could range from dozens to even hundreds. Imagine the terror in a royal court when the ruler died. Your life could be over, not for any crime, but because your boss needed you in the great beyond. Some people were buried alive, while others were killed first. In one Shang dynasty tomb, archaeologists found the remains of nearly 400 sacrificed people, their heads and bodies buried separately. This wasn't just a custom. It was an institution built on absolute power. To ensure loyalty, people were often taught that being chosen for sacrifice was a great honor, a way to serve for eternity. But this tradition came at a huge cost. It robbed the state of good soldiers, skilled workers, and experienced officials. It was a system that literally consumed the people a dynasty needed to survive. As centuries went on and ideas began to change, funeral practices slowly started to evolve. Small wooden or clay figurines called minki began appearing in tombs, meant to represent human attendance. For a long time, these were just small symbolic gestures. But for a ruler with ambitions as big as the sky, someone who saw himself as a god on earth, tiny symbols weren't going to cut it. He needed something more. He needed an army. The man who would conquer death, the first emperor. The man who would change everything was born Ying Zheng in 259 BCE today. We know him as Qin Shi Huang, a title he invented for himself that means first emperor of Qin. He took the throne of the Qin state as a boy of 13 and right away began a series of conquests that would reshape Chinese history. For centuries, China had been a patchwork of warring states. Qin Shi Huang, through ruthless military tactics and sharp political moves, did what no one else could. In 221 BCE, he crushed his rivals and unified the nation, creating the foundation of the country we now call China. His rule was one of massive, often brutal, change. He standardized money, weights, and measures. He connected existing laws to create the first version of the Great Wall of China. He was a visionary, but also a tyrant. Known for his paranoia, perhaps rightly so, given several assassination attempts, he ruled with an iron fist, famously burning books and executing scholars to crush any ideas that challenged his own. But under all that control was a very human fear, a fear of death. Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with becoming immortal. His search for eternal life was legendary. He sent ships out to sea, searching for a mythical elixir of life, and dispatched alchemists to find the fabled land of the immortals. His desperation to cheat death was all-consuming. Yet he was still mortal. As he got older, his quest for eternal life started to merge with a new obsession: planning his afterlife. This wasn't a contradiction, but a backup plan. If he couldn't live forever in this world, he'd build a new one for himself to rule after death. Work on his mausoleum started almost as soon as he became king as a teenager, a project that would last nearly 4 decades, and according to the historian Sima Qian, conscripted some 700,000 laborers, a number modern scholars still debate. So why would a man so terrified of dying spend his life building one of history's most elaborate tombs? Because for Qin Shi Huang, it wasn't a tomb. It was his second empire. It was his guarantee that even if his body gave out, his power wouldn't. He wasn't planning for his death. He was planning for his continued rule. And to rule an empire, you need more than just a palace. You need staff, entertainers, and most importantly, an army to protect it all. Forging an eternal empire, the grand design. Qin Shi Huang's final resting place isn't just a tomb. It's one of the most ambitious projects in history. Covering over 20 square miles, it was designed as a perfect small-scale replica of his capital city, a miniature version of the empire he built. This was a world for his soul to rule forever. At the center is a massive, man-made hill, the Tomb Mound, which today stands about 51 meters tall due to centuries of erosion. This mound, which covers the emperor's actual burial chamber, is one of archaeology's greatest mysteries because it has never been opened. Our only clue about what's inside comes from the Han Dynasty historian Sima Qian. Writing about a century after the emperor's death, he described a subterranean palace with models of pavilions and offices filled with rare treasures. He famously claimed it contained a map of the emperor's kingdom, with rivers like the Yangtze and Yellow River recreated in flowing mercury. The ceiling was said to be decorated with pearls to represent the sun, moon, and stars. For a long time, this was dismissed as a myth. But modern surveys of the mound have found unusually high levels of mercury in the soil, in a pattern that matches the region's waterways, giving real weight to Sima Qian's account. The tomb remains sealed partly out of respect, but also for practical reasons. Archaeologists worry that sudden exposure to air could instantly destroy the fragile artifacts inside, a lesson learned from the Terracotta warriors themselves. Then there's Sima Qian's other claim, that the tomb is rigged with deadly booby traps, like crossbows set to fire on any intruders. No one's been willing to find out if they still work. This is the context for the Terracotta army. The silent soldiers aren't the main attraction. They're the security guards. The pits where they stand are located about a mile east of the tomb, strategically placed to defend the emperor's soul from the spirits of the states he conquered, which all lay to the east. They were his eternal guards, protecting his afterlife palace. So why clay instead of people? The decision to create a terracotta army instead of committing mass human sacrifice was revolutionary. It was a stunning display of power and logistics. Sacrificing 8,000 of your best soldiers would cripple any real army. But making them from clay allowed Qin Shi Huang to build a force that was bigger, more perfect, and more eternal than any before. These soldiers would never get old, never rebel, and never question an order. By choosing terracotta, he wasn't just avoiding the cost of human sacrifice. He was creating something far grander and more permanent than his ancestors could have ever dreamed of. An army rises from the earth, the discovery for over 2,000 years. The emperor's silent army stood watch, completely hidden. Its existence was wiped from the history books. In a remarkable twist, not a single historical text, not even Sima Qian's detailed writings about the tomb, ever mentioned the creation of this massive clay army. Its memory was lost, buried under layers of earth. The secret was so well kept that its rediscovery happened entirely by accident. The date was March 29, 1974. A group of local farmers in Shanxi province were digging a well during a drought. As their shovels went deeper, they hit something hard. It wasn't a rock. It was a piece of reddish clay sculpted into the head of a man, staring blankly back at them. They kept digging and found more pieces, shoulders, chests, and legs. They had no idea what they'd found. Word of the strange discovery eventually reached Chinese archaeologists. When they arrived and started excavating, the true scale of the find was staggering. This wasn't just a few statues. It was a pit filled with life-sized clay soldiers, standing in military formation. They were arranged in battle ranks: infantry, archers, and charioteers, all facing east, as if marching to meet an enemy. The world was captivated. The discovery was celebrated as one of the greatest archaeological finds of the 20th century. What the farmers had found was just one corner of what is now called Pit 1, which is believed to hold about 6,000 soldiers and horses. Soon after, 2 more pits were found nearby. Pit 2 contained cavalry and war chariots, like a rapid response unit. Pit 3 appeared to be the command post, with figures of high-ranking officers. The complete lack of any written record about the army is still a puzzle. How could a project this massive just disappear from history? Some think the records were destroyed when the Qin dynasty collapsed soon after the emperor's death. Others believe the project was so secret, its memory was intentionally buried, perhaps along with the workers who built it, who, according to legend, were sealed inside to protect its secrets forever. Whatever the reason, the army's sudden return was like a message from China's first emperor, delivered after more than 2 millennia. The silent soldiers speak, what the warriors reveal. As archaeologists carefully pieced the shattered soldiers back together, the army started revealing its secrets. Each restored warrior was proof of the Qin dynasty's incredible artistry. This wasn't a mass-produced identical army. It was a legion of individuals. While the bodies were made from molds in an assembly line process, every face is unique. Of the thousands of soldiers found so far, no 2 look exactly alike. They have different expressions, different hairstyles, and it's thought they were modeled on actual soldiers from the emperor's army. The detail is incredible. The figures vary in height based on their rank, with generals being the tallest. Their armor is perfectly detailed, showing the different styles worn by various units. You can even see the treads on the soles of their shoes. This wasn't just a symbol of an army. It was a portrait of one. What many people don't realize is that these gray-brown figures were once bursting with color. When first unearthed, many warriors had traces of bright pink faces and armor with red, green, and purple details. Sadly, the ancient lacquer that bonded the paint to the clay was incredibly fragile. After centuries in a stable, humid environment, exposure to the dry air caused the lacquer to curl and flake off in minutes, taking the colors with it. This has made archaeologists much more careful in recent excavations, as they develop new ways to save the colors on future discoveries. The army was also fully armed for war. The soldiers' hands are shaped to hold real weapons, and when the pits were opened, they did. Over 40,000 bronze weapons were found, including spears, swords, and crossbows. The craftsmanship is amazing. Many blades are still incredibly sharp. For years, it was believed they were coated in chromium oxide, a preservation technique thought to be modern. However, recent research has debunked this. The chromium traces were likely unintentional contamination from lacquer on other parts, and the weapon's amazing condition is probably due to the unique properties of the local soil. The emperor's vision for his afterlife went beyond just his military. In other pits around the tomb, archaeologists have found terracotta figures of officials and scribes to run his eternal government, as well as acrobats, strongmen, and musicians with bronze instruments to entertain him. They've even found underground stables with horses and grooms, and a royal garden with bronze statues of cranes and swans. This wasn't just an army for protection. It was a fully functional, self-contained world. It was his empire, made eternal. Unsolved mysteries and future discoveries. 50 years after farmers first struck clay, the mausoleum of the first emperor is still a place of active discovery and deep mystery. For all that's been found, archaeologists believe we've only scratched the surface. Of the estimated 8,000 soldiers, only about 2,000 have been fully excavated. The vast majority of the tomb complex remains unexplored. Every new dig could lead to a major discovery. In late 2024 and early 2025, archaeologists announced a significant find in Pit No. 2, a terracotta figure believed to be a high-ranking commander, identified by his elaborate armor. It was the first time an officer of this rank had been found in that pit, offering new clues about the Qin army's command structure. Discoveries like this show that the site is constantly rewriting what we know. Of course, the biggest mystery is the central tomb itself. Will it ever be opened? The Chinese government continues to deny excavation requests, citing the immense challenge of preserving whatever is inside. Until technology can guarantee the tomb's treasures won't be destroyed, Qin Shi Huang's resting place will remain sealed. What wonders or dangers are inside? Are the rivers of mercury real? These are questions that may not be answered in our lifetime. Other questions remain. Who was the supreme commander of this clay army? While several generals have been found, no single leader has been identified. How did the artisans and laborers manage to create so many unique figures with such precision? What other kinds of terracotta figures, representing other parts of Qin life, are still buried in undiscovered pits? The emperor's necropolis was meant to be a complete world, and it's likely that entire parts of that world are still waiting to be found. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle of one of history's most ambitious rulers. The story of the Terracotta Army is more than just about a tomb. It's a story about the human struggle against mortality. It started with the grim practice of human sacrifice, the belief that you could take your power with you by taking the lives of others. But that was transformed by the incredible ego and vision of one man, Qin Shi Huang. He wasn't satisfied with the traditions of his ancestors. He wanted to do something no one had ever done. Take his entire, perfect, unbeatable empire with him into the next life. These silent, watchful soldiers are the ultimate symbol of that ambition. They represent a key moment in history, a move from the brutal reality of human sacrifice to the incredible artistry of creation. The emperor needed an army, but instead of taking lives, he commissioned the creation of a new eternal life, forged in the kilns of his empire. These aren't just servants. They're the guardians of his legacy, a demonstration of his power to create and command, even from beyond the grave. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, spent his life searching for an elixir that would make him physically immortal. He never found it, but in a way he might not have expected. His obsession with his afterlife has given him another kind of immortality. More than 2,000 years after his death, his silent legions have made sure his story is still told with awe. They have guarded his tomb, but they have also guarded his memory, ensuring that the first emperor of China will, in a sense, rule forever. If you were fascinated by this journey into the eternal empire of Qin Shi Huang, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Let us know in the comments what ancient mystery you want us to explore next.